Welcome to the Afghanistan Project podcast. I'm your host, Beth Bailey, and my guest today is director Ankita Kumar, discussing her new documentary, Far From Home. Ankita is an award-winning journalist turned documentary filmmaker, and Far From Home is her first film. It's screened already at over 8 film festivals last year and won several awards. Before filmmaking, Ankita worked for news organizations such as Deutsche Welle and Politico. Her core coverage areas are refugees, migration, immigration, and culture. She's also taught at UC Berkeley's journalism school. Ankita is currently working on her next feature documentary on Carnatic music, which is a form of Indian classical music, and she's producing another documentary on a Syrian-Armenian artist. My goodness, like that's such a cool compendium of things that you work on. Are those all the passions that you have? Or are you following just why the diverse things that you focus on, Ankita?
Yeah, I would say it's a combination of things I like and things that matter a lot to me. So the issue of refugees is personal for me. My grandparents were refugees to India in 1947. So, growing up, I had heard of their stories, but I'd never acknowledged the intergenerational trauma that's handed down to you on a platter.
Oh,
Like,
sure.
yeah, people get handed down a lot of things from their parents, including wealth. I was handed down intergenerational trauma.
How
And
much do you love that as a
yeah,
thing to have
I
inherited?
like it now. As a kid, I just didn't process it that well because there was a lot of like anxiety and fear and rage as well. Like why are we the way we are, and why have our circumstances failed us? Why do I feel like I'm losing out from my friends just because I don't come from a lineage of things that my friends have. So there was all these things that happened, and then I started working on. I became a journalist and I started working with refugees, and I realized this is a sentiment that percolates in every refugee family. So that's the personal issue is the reason I work primarily on refugees, and I love working with artists because I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be an artist. The journalism or even getting an education, any form of higher education was never part of the plan. I wanted to be a singer. My mom was very eager to make me a singer. It just didn't happen because I think my dad somewhere down the line got this thought that it's a very competitive sector. What if she doesn't make it? And then she'll not even be completing her education. So my dad was very eager that I complete my education, and then once I started studying, I just couldn't go back. So I think making these films on music is sort of my way of giving back to all the teachers who spent so much time and energy behind making me a singer.
Oh, that's amazing. Uh, Very, very cool. And I mean, I'm impressed at the number of things that you've been able to do and clearly do well. I watched Far From Home. It's a really compelling documentary. And before we started filming, I was telling you, I've heard in my capacity as a journalist so many stories about Afghan refugees in the last 4 years. And I've only talked to one group in India, and they were with the Special Mission Wing, and they had to get to somewhere where the ISI wasn't going to find. There were a lot of reasons that India was the right place for them, but this is definitely there are plenty of Afghans who fled to India. And so can you talk a little bit about, why you decided to focus on that particular experience in Far From Home and what Far From Home, the story that it tells?
So I want to rewind a little bit. So I want to go back to 2019. So I was a journalist in Delhi, and in 2019, December, I remember very clearly, protests erupted across the city of Delhi. In fact, a lot of parts of India against a discriminatory citizenship amendment act. The amendment was to give fast track citizenship to refugees of all religions except Islam from our neighboring countries, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And there were protests across the country because people were saying, how can you just single out somebody on the basis of their religion and say they can't, get citizenship in this country? And in general, I was not very well informed of the pathways to citizenship in India, because unlike, a lot of Western countries, it's not that easy to get citizenship in countries like India. You're born and you get your passport. A lot of people don't even have their passports, so they don't even know that, it's just a country of a lot of people. So, I was not very, this is not something I had thought deeply about. But what disturbed me in 2019 was that the fact that the government is doing this, and the government was planning to have task forces go across the country, interviewing people, asking them for documents. Documents could mean anything, from your birth certificate to your Aadhaar card, which is your national identification card. And there were a couple of states in India that protested against it and said that, we will not allow this kind of a thing to happen. But there were camps being set up across India to identify and, single out illegal immigrants and eventually deport them. And most of the targets of the people were from Bangladesh. Because there was a big, furor in the government around, immigrants from Bangladesh. So my grandparents had come to India in 1947 from East Pakistan, which is present day Bangladesh. It became Bangladesh in 1971. So, even though I'm Hindu, I kept thinking, my grandparents came to India with nothing but a few clothes on their back, escaping violence. And, they were poor and they had nothing on them when they came here. My grandmother did not have any documents on her. My grandfather had just had a school leaving certificate from Bangladesh. So, like, if they were alive and they could not prove their nationality and they couldn't prove their religion, even, would they be asked to leave? Like, thankfully, they had passed away before all this happened, but this thought was disturbing me a lot. And then several years later, when Afghanistan fell to the Taliban, I was a grad student at Northwestern. And when I saw the images of the people falling from the planes, I couldn't sleep at night. And I was taking a documentary class that particular semester with Brent Huffman, who was a specialist on Afghanistan. He's made a beautiful, wonderful film called Saving Mes Ainak, and on a historical site in Afghanistan, which was in danger from the Chinese who were interested in doing lithium mining there. So it is a beautiful, beautiful film. Brent had also worked on Uyghurs in Pakistan. So there was a lot of alignment with what he did and what I wanted to do. So I approached him with the topic of making a film on Afghan refugees in Chicago, because that's where Northwestern is. That was my student film, from my class. It was a very serious film. I'd interviewed a lawyer. I'd interviewed a recently settled Afghan refugee who had come from the United States. He had worked for the US government. And then I'd unpacked that how difficult it is for people who have moved here to get jobs and, get a permanent status. So Brent encouraged me to, look at Afghans in different parts of the world, not just, the United States. And I started digging into India, because India was the most obvious country for me, given my background and what I'd experienced in 2019. So that's pretty much the long story of why I decided to look at India. And when I went to India and I started working with the Afghans there, I also realized that, also one important point is Afghanistan has a very old historical relationship with India. There was once a greater, Hindustan. Afghanistan was a part of it. And a lot of Afghans used to come to India. They've been coming to India for generations, selling dry fruits. There's a very famous story called Kabuliwala by Rabindranath Tagore, about a Kabuliwala who forms a beautiful relationship, with a child in India. And then he goes to Afghanistan, comes back several years later, to meet the girl. So it's all these beautiful stories were there. A lot of Bollywood actors have their origins in Afghanistan. Kadir Khan, a very famous comedian, was born in Kabul. So there's a lot of historical relationship. So, and I studied in Delhi, and Delhi had a very big Afghan, settlement. There were Afghan restaurants and everything in Delhi. So for me, it was more like, okay, let's revisit Afghanistan and its relationship with India and see what's happening to the refugees. And what I unpacked in the film is yeah, it pretty much shocked me. It made me very upset as well, on why we can't do more to, integrate these people in our country, especially people who just genuinely want to have a better life.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just want to say I love Brent. Saving Mezainak is beautiful. I had him come on to talk about that, and if anybody missed that episode, they should really watch it. He's done a really important thing there, and it's horrid what's going to happen to Mezainak now. But so let's dig in. You know, you focused on one family in particular. What was your reason for focusing in on one family, and how did you choose that family when you came to know the whole, you know, this community of Afghans there?
Yeah, this is a great question. Love this question. So, I believe in character-driven stories because one character helps. I believe one character's story really helps to unpack what's happening locally, and it's also visually, you as a viewer you focus on one character and their journey. So that was the intention. Samira and her family were not my first choice. I found them in India. So the story is that I had identified another subject who had been frequently interviewed by the Indian press, and I had reached out to her. I had spoken to my cinematographer saying that, hey, I live in the US, you live in India. Can you go and have a chat with her, meet her? He met the Afghan leaders and they introduced her to this woman, and everything went smoothly. And I kept in touch with her for a good like 6, 7 months. It was I had a good relationship that I had cultivated over the course of 6, 7 months before the shoot because I knew that I had to build that trust before I go there and shoot with her. And the original plan was to just spend 2, 3 days with her, shooting with her, making an 8 to 9 minute film. I had no intention of making a documentary. It was more on the lines of making a news report for a news organization. And I was a journalism student. So when I was a journalism student who had just graduated from school, so I was still in that mindset. Okay, I have to just make something that's a great student project or a great news report. So when I went on the field, and I would say this is like divine intervention. I would say that maybe somebody out there wanted me to make a documentary, and I landed there. And the day I landed in September 2022, there was a massive protest outside the UNHCR office in New Delhi, and all the Afghans were protesting. And I turned up there and I met a lot of the Afghans, but I got this feeling of hostility that, why do you want to, work with us, and why do you want to interview us? And there was also this sentiment of them thinking maybe we can get something out of the UN. The UN promised them a big meeting. And then, I think they had a deal where within themselves, where they said, we don't want to talk to the media. So they started seeing me as media. So a lot of the Afghans just said, we don't want to work with you. And then the main subject of my film also didn't want to work with me. And she also had her own personal concerns. I think 1 month before I landed, somebody had made a YouTube video of her and put it up on social media without her consent. And consent is so important when you're working with these refugee communities. And so many people just don't understand that your one action can lead to so many problems for this one person. And because of the YouTube video, I think her husband, he was in Afghanistan, he had seen the video and he was like, I know you're in India with your daughters, I'll find you and I'll come for you. So, and there was also this other third element of fear arising that the Taliban might be setting up operations in India. There was a rumor going around that the Taliban may be setting up an embassy. And I remember telling a couple of the Afghan refugees saying that I am Indian. I've been living here forever. My and I'm a journalist. I can tell you that's not going to happen. The Indian government had a great relationship with the previous Afghan government. They won't let the Taliban set up base in India. But they were refusing to believe me. And also, like, it was I'm practically a nobody for them. I'm not from the government, right, to be saying this. So they didn't believe me. And then I just, I called up Brent. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. And Brent just said, calm down, this is your first film, just talk to people there, come back the next day with a fresh mind. And I did that. I came back the next day and I kept trying, and then I found this handicraft center where all these women were making these beautiful handicrafts that's there in the film. And out of those women, I met Farida, who made it to the final cut of the film. She introduced me to Samira and another woman, Wahida. And she said, there are these two beautiful, wonderful women who want to talk to you, want to tell you their story. And we decided to go with Samira because, we realized that Samira is the kind of a character who speaks so much with her eyes, and she's going through so much in her life, and she's internalized a lot of the pain that's coming out through her neurological disease. So it was just a creative call to go ahead with Samira. We did shoot some sequences with Wahida, but they didn't make it to the final cut of the film. So I feel really bad about that. I wish we could have put it into the film because Wahida had a great story. She was a gym instructor. I wish we could put that into the film. But yeah, that's pretty much the story of how I found the family and why I decided to work with them.
Oh, that's so interesting. And you're right. There is so much importance about consent. And I mean, imagine too, because the so far there is no Taliban embassy open in India, but the Indian embassy in Kabul just opened weeks ago. And, India welcomed Amir Khan Mataki to the country and let him go around and spread his hate and try to keep women out of various places. And so it is hard to say what the Taliban, where they'll be accepted next, right? So it is. And then, I've heard the story you mentioned in the beginning of the first woman and her husband finding out where she was. I've heard that it's almost the same story so many times, and it's just devastating every time someone gets found by a vengeful husband that wants them to pay for leaving them. It's just terrible. Just terrible. But let's move forward to Samira. What period of time? So you initially were just going to go for the days to shoot, and you did shoot that UNHCR protest, I'm assuming, because that's in the documentary. Did you shoot that when you were there?
Yeah, I landed
Okay.
there and I was like, I landed in the Afghan settlement a day before we started shoot because I wanted to meet everybody and introduce myself. Didn't want to just go walk into their homes with a camera. And then all the women, Afghan women, were like, "We are going to this protest. Do you want to join us?" So I got into an auto. Auto is a three wheeled vehicle. I got into them. I was pretty much like outside the auto, like there's so many women in it. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go with you. I don't know what I'm going signing up for. And I landed there and I was like, I don't know what's happening here, but let me get this on my phone because it might be useful. And it did make it to the final cut of the film.
Yeah, it's impactful. I mean, UNHCR has really failed a lot of refugees, unfortunately. Just I think it may be the influx of them or what, but I that was a really powerful thing to see. So the rest of it, what time period did you film the rest of the documentary in? Was it all during that one visit?
So we shot 70 to 80% of the film in that particular time frame in October 2022. We started end of September 22, finished by mid of October 22. And then we went back, there was a rough cut of the film. And after looking at that rough cut, Brent particularly wanted more from, Samira's sons and husband because they had not spoken much in the first time we shot with them. So then we went back in May 2023 to finish the film. So that's all the sequences, most of the sequences with the sons and the husband has been shot at during that time.
I thought that was really impactful, to hear them, talk about, oh, well, our friends, we don't tell them, we say that we're studying here. Like it's almost like it's a shameful thing for them to be refugees and not being able to do, to go about a normal life like they would like to. That was a really, I'm glad you added that piece. I think it just kind of rounds out the whole experience for the family. There's another part I'd love to ask you about. What were they able to bring with them? Well, I mean, this is in the movie, but what did they bring with them when they left Afghanistan? It wasn't a lot, right?
It wasn't a lot. She talks about, she says she has just one photo of her sons in the film. She couldn't bring anything else. I had also written an article about Samira's experience where I talked about what she had brought with her and how possessive she was of all her things. Like she had brought some pillows and she'd brought some not a mattress, I would say mattress covers and a couple of other things, but not much clothes and whatever they could get. But I felt really bad that she couldn't get much of her memories. She said that we had to practically just pack everything and get out of there. So she packed whatever they would need immediately to settle down, sit down and have a conversation, so mattresses, small pillows and stuff like that, pillow covers and mattress covers, and one photo, for the memory and some utensils and stuff like that. But yeah, they couldn't get much on that flight to India. And yeah, I don't know if she still thinks about it. uh, I'm sure she does. And there's this one sequence. It's not a sequence, it wasn't in the film because this happened between me and her individually, and I wrote about it in my article, and it reminded me of my grandmother. So there's this one particular time when I was talking to her one on one, and she had this pillow cover, beautiful red pillow cover. It's there in the film too. So all the red pillow covers and mattress covers are there in the film. So I was asking her about it, and she started clutching her pillow and saying, why do you want to know more about this? Why do you want to, like, it sort of felt like she felt I want to take that away from her. And that's all she had. And it reminded me of my dad's mother, because when she passed away, she had this one particular piece of jewelry, I think that she had gotten from her mother when they were escaping the riots, and it was given to her when she got married. And we couldn't find it after she passed away. It was a necklace, and we couldn't find it, and we all just assumed that maybe it's lost, or maybe, maybe. And then my dad was like, maybe she hid it, and we were like, Dad, don't be crazy. Why will she hide it? Like, doesn't she trust her own family? Why would she hide it? And then my grandfather started complaining about, like, hey, I can't sleep at night, like something is very, like, poking my ear, like this pillow, get rid of this pillow, I want another pillow. And then my dad found out that she had sewn the necklace into the pillow. Like, she didn't trust anybody with her things, and it was the only thing she had, so she wanted to protect it from everybody and didn't trust anyone. And it just reminded me of that particular incident with my grandmother. And I at that point backed off. I didn't shoot anything, didn't put that in the film. I know that these little things matter for women particularly, right? We don't have much on us. We just have our jewelry, we have our family, we have our kids, and we have, like, maybe, you know, a few things here and there. So, and that's all we hold on to. So that's the reason I wanted a woman at the center of the film.
I think it's so powerful. Yeah, my house is full of pictures of my children. I mean, that's like, there's not a room, I think, in my house that doesn't have pictures of my children. And so that hit me particularly hard because, like, yes, I could go print more. I have the digital copies, right? But if you don't, and that's all you have to remind yourself of when they were small, I mean, that was hard hitting. I think that was a really good choice to put that in there. And for anyone who's ever had to leave a place. I've heard lots of stories of Afghans having to leave Kabul on the flights, and they could only bring a bag. And so it's the same kind of thing. What do you put in that bag? Do you put your beloved one, special Afghan dress? Do you put the pictures of your family? What are you going to carry in your one bag? And I fully understand why they chose those practical and then sentimental things. The other part of Samira's life that is interesting is she has a health condition, and you don't showcase the complete impact of that health condition in the documentary. Can you explain, though, how that condition has impacted Samira's life and why you didn't show it, or didn't focus on it in the documentary?
So we didn't want to focus so much on the on her health problem, because the health problem she has is not something that can be shown on camera, and I'll explain why. She has a neurological problem called trigeminal neuralgia. So the trigeminal nerve in her face is affecting her when she talks. So when we first shot with her, it wasn't that bad. By the time we went to shoot with her the second time, it got so bad that she couldn't even talk properly. So that's why, if you see in the film, there's a transition. So she's talking a lot in the first half of the film. Then the second half, when her husband and kids start talking, she has her face is swollen up, and she's not talking much. So it actually got worse over time. And if we would have wanted to look at this disorder, this issue, we would have had to track her for a longer period of time, because this is something that I would ideally would have liked to track for years, because it's the kind of, a lot of people don't know this, but George Clooney had trigeminal neuralgia. Salman Khan, a very big Bollywood actor, had it. And when I screened this film at Living Out, which is a senior living center in Palm Springs, a couple of months ago, there was a doctor in the screening who said that this condition is so bad that most patients actually shoot themselves in the face. They can't handle the pain. So it's pain in your face constantly. So you know to to showcase that kind of an impact, we would have had to shoot for over a long period of time, and this was a short documentary, which is why we took the creative call to only reveal what she has towards the end, because she's holding her face, but it's not something that you it's not a kind of a disease that can be showcased in the way like a disability can be showcased, and how it impacts their daily life. This is just, she's sitting and suddenly her face just starts hurting. So that's the creative call we took. And I know a lot of people would have wanted to know more about the disorder, and I really wish I could have done more. But even at this point, like her health is better now, but it gets like it's good and then bad and then bad and then good. So that's pretty much the condition. So it's a very rare condition. She needs to undergo a massive surgery, and we don't even know if she undergoes the surgery if she'll be okay.
Yeah, I know a little bit about the surgery that can help with trigeminal neuralgia, and it's scary too. I mean, it can have, but the option is, do you want to not feel pain? And I wondered though, because you mentioned that in the documentary that she could get a treatment in India. And I wondered originally if she wasn't able to get the treatment because of money or if it was because she was a refugee, because I've heard in Pakistan where Afghan refugees can't get medical treatments in some places because of their refugee status. So I didn't know if that played into it at all, or if it's just it's an expensive and difficult surgery and that kind of thing.
So her medical condition is the reason she came to India. So that's the reason they chose India they India was a destination when they wanted to escape Afghanistan. So because they had a medical visa already. So a lot of Afghans actually used to come to India to take treatment. In fact, a lot of previous Afghan presidents have sought treatment in India, flown down to India and sought treatment. So Samira actually used to come to India quite frequently with her family to seek treatment for her condition. And she was doing fine, but I think this condition gets worse with stress and depression. And that's something I think her friend also talks about in the film. She also says that, Samira also says that, whenever I get stressed, it just gets worse. So that was the reason they came to India when this happened, because they thought, okay, we have a medical visa, let us come to India. They are not being denied any medical help. They are being given help. In fact, there was this very lovely doctor who was treating her, giving her some acupuncture and all those therapies to ease her pain. And I wanted to interview her. I called her up. I said, ma'am, I just want a couple of minutes of your time. I want to just understand her health condition. I want you to explain it. Would have been very nice for us to see a doctor explaining her condition, but the doctor just refused to shoot with us. And this kept happening to us throughout the film. Like people are just at the last minute saying, we don't want to shoot with you. We don't want to work with you. That's because they are just scared that, there will be retaliation if they talk about refugees, because they are treating them outside the traditional framework. So it's not that the refugees can't get treatment, they can, but it's just like it's probably like because they're undocumented immigrants, it's more like we are helping you, but we don't want anybody else to know about it. It's something on those lines. So that's
Sure.
why the doctor just wasn't there in the film, just refused to shoot with us. And we just were like, okay, when we have to take this creative call of like just not showcasing her health condition in detail, because we're not getting that opportunity as well.
Sure. And it's just a side, part of the story, right? The whole part of the story is being in a place and not knowing, what does your future look like here? And I guess what were, aside from Samira's health condition, the biggest concerns for the family while they waited for their UNHCR interview to get that, was it like the white card or something, right? Was that what it was called? What were the hardest things for them at that point?
So at that point in 2022, the biggest concern for them was getting, as you rightly said, the white card. So the white card is basically it's an acknowledgement that you have sought asylum. We recognize you as an asylum seeker, but that card doesn't guarantee you anything within India. So the UN recognizes you as an asylum seeker. So basically, when you land in India and you say, I'm a refugee, you go to any country actually, even if I go to, say, maybe Colombia or Peru, I land there, I say, I'm a refugee, I go to the UN. The UN is like, okay, we are giving you a blue card to recognize that you've sought asylum, but we will understand your case first and then decide whether you deserve asylum. And then they interview you. So that's what happened when we first shot with her. She was supposed to have her interview. That did not happen because the UNHCR is overwhelmed with requests. They also turn away a lot of people saying, we are not going to do your interview today. And it's also like, it's sort of like pitching. I am a bigger victim than this person, give me the card, right? And once they get that card, then it's a waiting game. They have to wait till they get repatriated to another country. So there are some countries like Canada or Australia, they send requests that, hey, we can take in these many people, and then the UN reaches out to the refugees saying, hey, fill out this application, and if they make it, then they can go to another country. So in fact, a lot of the Afghans I met during that time in 2022, a lot of them have been relocated. They have been relocated to different parts, like in Canada, Australia, even the United States. And But it's sort of like a very competitive thing. Like everybody is like very hush hush about their status, what they got, and like whether they're applying for anything, because they're like, if we tell anyone, then somebody else will, take our opportunity. It's very sad. It's a very sad state of affairs that we're pitting refugees against each other. And that was the biggest concern for the family, that we should get the white card. They got it by the time we shot with them in 2023. But now their biggest concern is they want to go to another country because there's no framework for them to support them in India. And they don't want their sons' lives wasted, waiting for 10, 15, 20 years even, to get repatriated to another country. And I know this, that repatriation is not the right of every refugee. And I did reach out to the UNHCR multiple times. I said, give me an interview. I want to understand your process, because that would have, then the film would have had their perspective as well. But they just didn't respond. They just gave me a statement saying we try our best to help all refugees and stuff like that, which I can't really use in a film. So I didn't hear back from them. So they are not in the film, and I just let the refugees talk. So if people see the film and feel the UNHCR is not doing much, I would say that's on the UNHCR, because they never responded to our request to be in the film.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard terrible things about UNHCR in Pakistan. I've heard so many Afghans have tried to get just to be acknowledged as a refugee in Pakistan, and they didn't get any response from UNHCR. And yeah, I've also tried to get UNHCR to go on record. I've had some success, but I wasn't putting them in a documentary where you're I can imagine that they would not want to have people see how terrible it is, because it's an overwhelmed institution. There's so much sad to try to escape from, I guess, is a really simplistic way of putting it.
And Beth, I just want to add that when I was making this film, I realized why nobody had ever made a film on this topic before, because it's just so much of, backlash and pushback against making anything on this from all the institutions of power. Nobody wants the story to go out there. In fact, I had interviewed a lawyer in the film, a lawyer who works with refugees in India, and I had told her what the film was about. Before we went into shoot, I sent her questions, and then I made the film, and she wanted to see the film. And ideally, we never really, I mean, take consent, from the subject for like the final cut of the film. But I was kind enough to say, okay, let's do it, because, this is an important topic. But then she got back saying that I don't appreciate the fact that you put me in this film and you've added these elements about the government, which I wasn't informed about. I was like, I had told you that this was going to be a topic in the film, but I don't think she realized the extent to which I would dig into the topic, because a lot of journalists, maybe they go and they just talk about, hey, there's a protest happening, this is the condition of refugees. I don't think she realized I will dig in so deep that I start unearthing things that people don't want to be out there,
Yeah.
and the government. And also, I understand where she was coming from, because she works with refugees, she helps them as much as she can. She has an organization, and the government, Indian government, does have a history of going after people who are critical of them. So if, she's in a film where we are criticizing the government, it would be a problem. But to be honest, I am not really, if we look at the situation of refugees across the world, India doesn't have any particular law, but at least India is doing something compared to a lot of other countries where the situation is so horrible. Like in Pakistan, particularly, like it's the Afghan refugees can't even get jobs. At least in India, they can live a decent life, and they're trying to live a decent life. They're trying to make ends meet. They can go to school. Their kids go to school. They can't go to college, but they can go to school. They can't get a job, but they can at least complete their schooling. So there are institutions in India to help them. It's just that we could do better.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny. My idea of what refugee life was like, I had no clue at all until I started covering post-withdrawal Afghanistan, and I was astonished by what I learned as I started to hear stories about what it really means to be a refugee, and it's never easy, and it's always a difficult, long process from everything I've heard. But you just don't, I somehow I didn't expect that, you know, and I'm glad that you show it so vividly here. And I think it should give all the people who watch this documentary a real appreciation of when somebody arrives here in our country, what they've been through and what they've had to face, you know, so that we can really extend a warmer welcome and a more empathetic welcome, instead of what I think sometimes can be, actually, you know what? I've seen a lot of very warm welcomes happen in this country, actually. Um, but I'm sure that there are some that are not so warm. So I'm hoping that this humanizes that very difficult experience and kind of opens some hearts in a big way. Um, I want to know how many Afghan families in India would you say right now are living without status, and what are the hardest things that they face because of that?
So without status, that there's not no exact breakdown of the numbers. So when I shot the film, officially there were 15,000 people. But that was the people who were documented, who had been given the white card, acknowledged as asylum seekers. But the undocumented people were, it was a much larger number. And the UN had not released the recent statistics when I went to shoot the film. And when I went there, I was like, there are so many neighborhoods that are filled with Afghans. I'm sure this 15,000 does not make any sense, because if it was like one neighborhood or one cluster of, one cluster in a couple of clusters in a neighborhood, I would have been like, okay, this number makes sense. But if there are like clusters in every part of Delhi, just Delhi alone, and I'm hearing all these stories of, oh, my kids are in Mumbai, somebody's kids is in Shimla in the hills, and I'm like, if they're so spread out, India is a country of 1.1 billion people, it's easy to get lost. So how many people are there, you know, who are undocumented and just, biding their time and waiting for the UN to give them an interview? There are so many people who are just not documented. So I don't have the exact number, but I do know this, that, and when I met Samira earlier this year, I met her in January. I went to show her the film in person, and when I showed her the film, she told me, she got very emotional. She told me that, she was hoping that she also get moves to another country if the film can help her in any way. And she was telling me that in 2025 and towards the end of 24 and 25, a lot of people were actually sent to other countries. So the UN was ramping up repatriation um, in 2024. So she was hopeful that something could work out for her, but she's still in India, so we don't know what's going to happen.
Gosh, that's just so tough. It's such a long period to be living with that kind of uncertainty. And when you talked about, the generational trauma that you inherited, I mean, imagine the generational trauma too that's being passed down to so many Afghans right now, that has been passed down for so many generations already because of the conflict in that country. And it's just, I, I really want to see stability for families like Samira's family, and that it just has to come eventually, right? Ugh. Well, you've
And speaking of
already,
stability, I mean,
yeah.
I was talking to an Afghan woman here, an Afghan American, and she was very concerned about the fact that they are now losing generations that remembered Afghanistan as a peaceful country. It's such an unfortunate state of affairs. And Samira says that in the film as well. Ever since I was born, there was never been a peaceful Afghanistan. So her mother's generation has seen a peaceful Afghanistan, and that generation is going to go away in like a couple of years. So whatever generations are left, they only have trauma. So I just want to say that we have to remember that Afghanistan's not seen peace for a very, very long time.
That's so true. And I can almost guarantee you that there's not a whole lot of mental health care that the Taliban are pushing inside of Afghanistan right now. And I know from the stories I've heard of refugees living in Pakistan right now that there is a serious need for more mental health care for refugees there because of the stress that they have to go through. Because, like you said, they can't work, they can't send their children to school. The price of living is insane, and there's just so many things that, and all, I feel like Afghans, and perhaps I'm sure this is true with many different cultures, but Afghans are so connected to their family, and their families have been so dispersed by all these conflicts, right? The diaspora just kind of is like this linked group that, may I have family in Germany and I have family in California and in Chicago, and, where all of that trauma then kind of jets across the world and is shared as somebody is living in this place where this problem is happening, where the Taliban might arrest me at any moment, or where I'm facing deportation and I can't afford to feed myself. And the family, let's say in California, says, oh no, I need to help you and get more money. So I need to work extra hours to be able, it's just all of these things feed into each other. And it's an immensely difficult set of things for a group of people to be facing. And I'm sure it's that way with refugees in countries all over the place. But this is certainly my first time in the last 4 years, seeing it. And it is just, it tugs at your heart because there's not much you can do to affect change in that. But I think that this is, like I said, your documentary is very powerful in that way. And you talk about the other projects you have going on, but do you think you'll do any other documentaries with Afghan refugees in the future?
I want to work with Afghan refugees, and I think they have been very welcoming of me as well. Like I was recently invited to a birthday party, a 16 birthday party, in San Francisco. So they have been very accepting of me, and I feel they've really opened their hearts out to me. So I want to really, tell more stories of the Afghan people. I'm looking for a good story. My dream was to make another film on the situation of Afghan refugees in Pakistan, but the situation is getting pretty bad, and this particular year, India and Pakistan almost went to war. So, given my ethnicity, I don't want to, travel and put the subjects of my film in danger as well, because I know that they are in danger in Pakistan. So maybe that's something I'll park for the future. But my goal is to make a bigger film, a feature film on Afghans. And I want to make a film. It's my dream to make a film on their culture and their music and so many and their food and so many beautiful things that is their part of their country. I don't just want to show them as people who are running away from conflict. I want to show the beautiful aspects of their culture. And there's so many stories of Afghans in America, and those are the stories I want to tell. And I feel that I'm very lucky that the Afghan community has been that kind to me, that they want me to tell those stories. So I definitely want to, tell a story of them. I love food, so maybe food might be the next destination. So might make a food on Afghan food. I might make a film on, I'm saying food, film on Afghan food. Let's see.
Yeah, you've got me now thinking about Afghan food. So my brain can only go through that one word too. Food, food, food. Yeah, Afghan food is just unbelievably delicious and always in such plentiful amounts. That's what I love about Afghan hospitality. It's like all of the things that we have for you, and it's so, there are so many beautiful things to cover, and that's a really powerful, and so many
Yeah.
great stories too.
And I have a fun story actually about food. So in the film, if you saw a sequence of them cutting, the husband actually helping out in the kitchen and cutting the potatoes, because they have their own version of Afghan fries, and they cook it in a lot of oil. So they made that food for us actually. That was for us, and we ate so much because we are gluttony people who are just hungry. And we ate, the entire crew fell ill because we just ate so much. We just loved the food. We couldn't stop eating. And at some point, Samira was like, are you guys sure you want to eat so much? Because this is really oily. And we were like, we love this food. We love this food. And the next day we couldn't shoot because we were so unwell. But
Oh
happily
no.
so.
Oh no, it's so good. Yeah, I my former co-host brought me to meet his interpreter and his interpreter's wife, and she made us the most amazing kabuli pilau, and she gave us leftovers to take home. And my favorite thing to do, and it's so American of me, but like I'll fry up eggs and put it on kabuli pilau for breakfast. And to me, like that is the best breakfast there is eggs over kabuli pilau.
That
Oh my
sounds
gosh.
fun.
Oh, I think that's so amazing. And there really are so many stories of resilience and just powerful, especially Afghan women who made it here. And I think right now, because of what the Taliban is trying to do, those stories are more powerful than anything. Just show the Taliban and show the world, this is why you're afraid of Afghan women. It's because of women like this. I could send you a couple amazing women that just immediately pop to mind who are going to be the movers and shakers for the post-Taliban world, and there's nothing the Taliban can do about it. And it's so great. It's like it's the one thing that gives me hope is some of the people that I know who've made it here who are not gonna be stopped by the Taliban. So I can't wait to see what you do with that. That'll be really impactful, I think.
Thank you.
Um, I want to know, I guess, what has the reception been like for Far From Home so far, Ankita?
So, and anybody and everybody who's watched the film, thankfully they have liked it. I have always been very nervous in the audience, thinking, "Oh my God, what is going to be the reaction?" But people have really liked the film. In fact, we won in the Best Short Documentary category at the Chicago South Asian Film Festival, and I had a lot of people walk up to me and appreciating the film and what we were trying to do in raising awareness about Afghanistan. We've done a couple of screenings in the last few months. We also have screenings coming up on November 22nd. There are two screenings in LA. One is in Boyle Heights, the other one is in Beverly Hills. And there's another big screening coming up at the National Press Club on December 3rd at 6 p.m. in Washington, D.C. So if you're in D.C., please come by to the National Press Club. We have food and we have a reception as well and a Q&A with me. So yeah, I'm looking forward to more feedback coming in about the film. Most of the feedback and reactions have been, I didn't know anything about this topic. And I was like, that's exactly why we made this film. We wanted to educate you on what's happening in different parts of the world where refugees are no longer welcome. And I think we've done what we've is- we've reached our goal. Like if we are getting the sentiment out of people, then I think we've done what the film intended to do. And my goal is to bring this film to universities next year. So I'm already in talks with a lot of universities across the US. So I'm planning to do like a university tour because my goal is to find distribution for this film in universities. That's where it deserves to be. In fact, we got a grant, a finishing grant from the American Institute of Afghanistan Studies to finish Far From Home. And the grant was I was a John F. Richards Fellow, which basically that grant was to make a primary product on Afghanistan. And this is a primary product. It's an educational film talking about what's happening to refugees in Afghanistan who go to India. So my goal is to get more people to understand what's happening, and a lot of people have also been giving me some great comments on them loving the gym sequence. They love the gym sequence. They also really love the camaraderie the husband and the wife share. A lot of people did not like. They told me that they changed their perception of Afghan men because in their head Afghan men were mostly like the Taliban and treating women poorly. But when I showed that this beautiful equation between the husband and the wife, they really liked it. So I wanted to pass on that message that not all men are like that. There are a lot of men like Javed Faizi in that film who want a better life for their kids and their wife, and they are willing to make that sacrifice and take care of their better half.
That is a really important thing to show. I guess my last question for you before I turn the floor over to you for anything else is where can people find Far From Home to watch it if they want to watch it now?
So we are looking for distributors for the film. I'm in talks with a couple of distributors to get the film to a platform where more people can watch it. For now, you will have to come to the screenings. That's the only thing I can say. But the plan is that next year, when we bring the film to universities, and we do the entire tour, after that, my plan is that if if nothing works out, I will be putting the film on YouTube. I want anybody and everybody who has access to the internet to watch the film, and maybe even download it and keep a copy for their records. But I will be putting the film out for the world. If we find a distributor next year, that will be the best thing, because then that sort of establishes our goal of getting the film to as many people as possible. YouTube is great, but yeah, I really want a distributor to distribute the film. So for now, till Oscar, also we are on an Oscar campaign, so I can't really technically distribute the film or put it on YouTube, or put it out for the world, because Oscar rules forbid that. So till December 8th, when Oscar begins, you'll have to catch us at our screenings.
Well, I definitely think there are a lot of people around the DC area, so that would be great for people. And I guess, do you have any final things? Is there anything I didn't ask you about? Anything you want to make sure that listeners and viewers hear, Ankita?
I think one point I missed was that we got an executive producer for the film. His name is Nasiruddin Shah. He's a big Bollywood actor, and I'm just very grateful that he's put his might and name behind this film, because it just establishes the fact that there are. Mr. Shah has been very vocal about refugees and refugee rights, and it just cements our position in India when we take the film there, because we can always say that we have someone like Mr. Shah supporting this kind of a topic, and it gives us faith to keep doing what we do, because there was a lot of fear among the crew as well, that how can we release this film in India? What if something happens to us? The cinematographer of the film has gone with an alias for the film. That's not his real name. That's how scared the crew was. And I think the fear has reduced a lot. In fact, I saw the cinematographer promoting the film on a social media saying, I shot this film. He shot the film beautifully. He's the best cinematographer I've worked with. So wonderful, wonderful person. So I really feel that more people should watch this film with an open mind, and keep in mind that, there are this group of refugees from a country they can't go back to. So always have this perspective when going into the film. I know some people might think, oh, like this film is against the Indian government. I mean, if India is a country of 1 billion people, and we have a lot of educated people around the globe. So we should be open to criticism as well, in areas where we can improve. And refugee rights is one area where we can improve, especially because India wants to be a developed nation, and become a $1 trillion economy. So if we want to be a $1 trillion economy, we also have to address issues that affect the most marginalized people in society. That's my spiel.
Sure. Well, and you have a journalism background, and journalists aren't there to make people to make the government feel good about itself, right? Journalists are there to ask the hard questions and to find the things that are not going the way that they could be going, and saying, "Hey, what's the deal here?" Shining a light on those hard things, and that's what you're doing with this. So,
I also want to shed light on the nice aspects of our culture. My next film is on Indian classical music, which I want to bring
exactly.
to the world. So it's not that, I'm particularly, have any agenda against my culture. I want to bring my culture to more people. And I want people to
Right.
know the nice aspects of it as well. But we should be open to criticism.
Sure. Absolutely. That's how I feel about my work anyway, is that, I'm not I love my country. I want my country to be the best it can be. And so I want to point out when things are maybe going not the way that we've said that they're supposed to go. And I think that's all that this is. And these are human stories. These are humans who are wrapped up in policy, right? And that's what you show here, and you show it so beautifully. So thank you so much for talking about this here. And I'm so excited to see what happens with the Oscar news in the next month or so, and all of the interesting things that are ahead with Far From Home. So thank you so much, Ankita, for joining me.
Thank you so much, Beth.
All right. Thank you everyone for listening. Tune in next week. And until then, Tasha Kaur, and see you soon.